Appamada and its programs are supported by your generosity, and your generosity and support makes such a difference. You can find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org. Thank you.
Welcome, 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 or wherever you're tuning in, especially from the Sanghas in Madison, Minnesota, Chicago, England, Switzerland, Alpine, and Hawaii. So welcome to all of you and the points in between. To start off, I'd like to relate a few announcements. One is the repeats, the reminders actually. One is of the short intensive that Joel and Todd are going to lead, and those will be on the 5th, 6th, and 7th of November. So that's coming up pretty quick. Registration is out, so you can register if you wish to attend. It'll take place on Friday night, 7 to 9, and then all day. I think it's 6:30 to 5 Saturday and Sunday. If you have any questions, feel free to contact either one of those people, Todd or Joel, for further information. The second reminder is of the upcoming celebration of ceremony for Kevin Frost. And that will be on November 10th at 4 p.m. And we're planning on doing it in person, unless something unusual happens, numbers increase drastically in the next week or two. So, and it's possible that it will be inside as well. So that would be really nice with social distancing, of course. So that's all the announcements, unless someone else has something particular to announce. And Maria, I can't see but a handful of people. So if you see someone.
No, no one's raising the hand.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so today I'd like to talk about well, I would like to tell you a story. I'm giving a personal account of a journey that I've been on for the last year. And that journey was made up by a certain news that I received, and then the impact that had on me, and then subsequently my working with the Four Noble Truths and the impact that had on me, and then another impact subsequent to that. So it's kind of a longish version. Some of these parts you may have heard about, but now I've kind of put it all together. And primarily what at the core of the story is, no matter what happens, one can, and the impact that it has on you, then the Four Noble Truths are so, it's just amazing to me how powerful they are when you really work with them. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then also, the impact of those on your life. Okay, so I'll begin the story. So I received a telephone call from my ex-boss. I used to work at a state agency and I retired 7 years ago. I received a call from my boss. I'd been in touch with her, so it wasn't surprising to receive a call, but she was informing me that the wife of this colleague of mine had passed away. And the colleague, his name is Michael, I hadn't seen him in 2 or 3 years. I'd run into him after we had both retired, just here and there, and then I wasn't seeing him anymore. But anyway, so his wife had died, which in some ways was not surprising in the fact that she had lupus and had suffered health issues for many, many years. So it was sad, certainly, but not completely shocking. what was shocking was when my boss said, "Oh, and by the way, Michael has been diagnosed with brain cancer and has been battling that for a while." And that was a shock because I wasn't aware of it. So after talking to her, I spoke to Michael as soon as I was able to. And we had a conversation. I asked him, how is he doing and so forth, and with regards to Marta, his wife. And then I asked him about his health, and he elaborated about where he was, and it was pretty obvious that he was pretty close to the end of his life. And in that conversation, it was such a lovely conversation, despite what we were talking about. He talked about Michael was a very goal-oriented person, and he was talking about his legacy. What was he going to leave behind? And he was talking about the things that he was proud of. And one of those things is his wife was from Colombia, and they had brought kids, relatives, up to the States and got them an education. So he was very proud of that. And then he proceeded to talk about the disappointments in his life, and some of those had to do with our job and things that he still felt bad about there. So he was kind of covering it all. And he was also talking about the fact that he had many things to take care of, physical things that he had to take care of. And he was trying to get rid of furniture, and he was advising me, don't buy a bunch of furniture. You spend a lot of money and you worry all about it, and then here you are, you got to get rid of it. And he also said, I've got all these books and music that I dearly love, and I want to be sure that I have time to give those away to people who appreciate them. And he wasn't quite sure if he'd be able to do that, whether he'd have the time to do that. So just to step away for a minute, my relationship with Michael was, I worked with him for nearly 20 years. And if any of you have ever worked in a small office, you get to know people really well over time. It was a tradition, we always celebrated birthdays, so we really got into each other's lives, and we went out to eat with each other. And and we also fought with each other, as like siblings. So all of that was in there. And Michael said, we did go through some bad patches, but I think basically we were friends. And I said, well, yeah, sure. We had a lot in common besides the work, a lot of things outside of work that we had in common. So anyway, this was a lovely conversation, and it moved me greatly. And I did call him again a week or so later, and he wasn't really in a good way to be talking. It wasn't that he was ill so much as that he wasn't feeling good. So anyway, we didn't get to speak very long. And then probably within a month or so, he was gone. So probably the primary impact, or one of the impacts that I had from having that conversation was, I was thinking legacy. I never even thought about my legacy, just not something that occurred to me. So that was kind of on my mind. And then I was thinking, because he was somebody close to my age, he's a little bit older than I. And because we were so connected for a long time, it just felt like this is getting really close, So I started to think about, how long am I going to be here? And probably as importantly, I started to reflect on my life. And I was kind of pulling out different things, kind of sifting through, and sometimes I would just cringe, I would be ashamed of certain things, or just be shaking my head thinking, oh, what was I thinking? And so I was kind of critical of myself in retrospect and thinking about my life. And so the next big event was in January. As you all know, some of you folks were there. We had Joel and I had this intensive on the dependent origination, and part of what I was charged with to cover was the 12 link chain of to liberation as opposed to bondage. And so one of the things I had read quite a bit about, and that I've been talking about, is how you could break the chain of dependent origination, particularly with right view and getting clear on things. And another thing that I was focusing on was the Buddha said that the way to break it is the Four Noble Truths, working with the Four Noble Truths. So in preparation, excuse me, I'm losing my voice already. In preparation for that intensive, I spent quite a bit of time working with the Four Noble Truths. So the first Noble Truth being the truth of suffering. And with that Noble Truth, there's a task. And the task is to completely understand your suffering, to really get to the heart of it. So I took that very seriously and was, again, kind of coming from what had come before of, this person dying and thinking about my life and so forth. I realized what my major source of suffering was. It goes way, way back. It's real deep core beliefs and stuff. And so I said, okay, what is my suffering? Well, my suffering has to do with my mother, of course. We all know that about me. It's not my mother, actually, but I started there. And I said, well, what's really going on there? And I realized that a lot of my thoughts about myself and my life were formed up very quickly. I think that's true with a lot of people, if not everybody. And it had to do with my mom was gone, got sick right after I was born, and so she was away, and then she came back, and anyway, that was really difficult, being away from your mom when you're so young. And so that was I held on to that, and I've always thought that I was the cause of her leaving. Kids blame themselves. And subsequently, throughout our relationship, it's been one where she just can't see me. So I know you guys have heard all this before, but anyway, she can't see me. So I took it, I carried through that. Oh, well, there was something wrong with me that sent her off. And so she can't see me because, there's something definitely wrong with me. So I realized that was my suffering, that there was something so terribly wrong with me. And then I finally came to, I had a reality check, major one, saying, well, it's not really true. My mom cared for me. She didn't care for me the way I wanted or thought I needed, but it wasn't the way I wanted. I wanted her to see me, and she can't do that. So I've been holding on to this suffering forever and trying to please her just to make it happen, that she would do this. And of course, she wasn't ever going to do that. And, I think Flint told me that for years and years. And I went, yeah. So, but it never really felt, clearly in my mind that that's what had been going on. And so all of a sudden I said, okay, my suffering is that I want my mom to be different. I'm clinging to that notion. And the craving is just, I wanted a certain kind of love, relational love, connection, of understanding and being able to be seen. And that all my life I've been trying to get it from my mom, which was obviously a failure. And when other people did give it to me, certainly, but they weren't my mom, so it was somehow less than, it was a little bit dismissed. So that's a lot of suffering that I was creating, and I was complicit with all of it, saying, yeah, well, this is the way it is, this is the way it needs to be, and very hard-headed and very determined. So when all of that kind of fell together and I realized all that, it became very clear, all of a sudden, I felt like, gee whiz, if I've just lost my identity. You know, I'm not who I thought I was, you know, this really awful kid that caused my mother to be crazy and stuff. That my mother did care for me in her own way, it just wasn't, wasn't enough in my mind anyway. And so it's like, oh, well, so what am I standing on now? What, if that's not true, where am I? And so, and part of that process was, what happened was, is a seeping in, and this is the task of the First Noble Truth, of compassion for the one who was convinced that these things were true and held on to them for so long. And after holding that for a while, there was a compassion, and then there was a forgiveness that came in as a result of working through that. And and so when I turned back to look at my life again, I saw it very differently from the first time I started looking, right after my friend Michael had died. All of a sudden, instead of seeing this person that was doing all these things, and I, was obviously not exactly, it wasn't like they were awful, they were just off base, it was coming from a place of really wanting to be cared for, receiving this care that I wasn't getting, this kind of care. And so it wasn't a good place to form relationships and stuff. So all of a sudden, I really felt the compassion for this person that was, from being a really young child all the way through time, working under all these assumptions. And so it really changed the way I could look at my life and saying, oh, this is really an unfortunate situation that has transpired, and no wonder these activities and decisions were not maybe the best that they could have been. And then starting from here, I say, there was some questions that Flint brings up about some of his cancer patients that he was seeing back in San Francisco a long time ago. I think it was San Francisco. And how as they were getting close to death, the questions that they were asking were, did I love well? Did I live fully? So of course I was bringing those questions up, and with these questions, it was great because I got to really think about that, and again, the compassion was able to come in and say, I loved really well in this circumstance, and this other one, not so much, and the same thing with living fully. And it's not about justifying behavior, it's having a more compassionate way of viewing it. And it also allows one to look at where one is right now and say, okay, what is my aspiration for living and for loving? And with that aspiration, and with the knowledge that I don't have to be clinging to these other thoughts, I may have other ones that create suffering, but that one's out of the way for the most part. You can create an aspiration and move towards that, which I thought very hopeful sort of things to pass through and to have. And if it hadn't been for the practice, that wouldn't have. I don't think that would have happened, that change in viewing myself, my life, and the future, and the world at large. And another part of it is this idea of right view. And one of the characteristics of right view, the 3 marks of existence, and one of those is no self. That is that, it was like Flint was saying the other day in Inquiry, that we think we're all alone and isolated. And in actuality, we have all these people right here with us at this time, and the care is there. And it's a matter of being aware of that, just keeping that in mind, that we have companions on this path. And that's a very hopeful thing. So let me see if I have anything more to say about this. Oh yeah, I do. Jack Cornfield, in the book, The Path with Heart, talks about 3 questions. The 2 are the same. Do I love, or did I love well? Did I live fully? And he includes another one of, was I able to let go? Which, that's another good one to add on, right? Which is what I was talking about, the letting go of the suffering, certain suffering. So I want to read you a little quote from his book. And he says, to love fully and live well requires us to recognize finally that we do not possess or own anything. Our homes, our cars, our loved ones, not even our own body. Spiritual joy and wisdom do not come through possession, but rather through our capacity to open, to love more fully, and to move and be free in life. This is not a lesson to be put off. One great teacher explained it this way: the trouble is, you think you have time. We don't know how much time we have. What would it be like to live with the knowledge that this may be our last year, our last week, our last day? In light of this question, we can choose a path with heart. So that's about all I have to say about that. And I wanted to do some group work. But I want to see if there's any questions about any of that. Okay. So in the group work, I think let's see, let me see how many people are here.
We've got 18.
18, okay. So why don't we get into groups of 3? That might be kind of fun. And just kind of hold this question of living well, living fully, loving well. And just to sit with it for a few minutes, and then maybe have an opportunity to talk about that, where we feel like maybe we stand, or is there something that has impacted us, that has had an effect on how we look at our lives now? Has there been something in our life that may have changed the way that we look at these questions?
Can I just ask Laurie if you'd like to be in a room?
Sure, I'll be in a room. And I want to say one thing before we get started, and that is that if anybody in your group feels uncomfortable with participating with it, doesn't really want to talk, they don't have to participate. So just, need to make sure that everybody is comfortable with that. And if they want to, they can. And if they don't, it's not obligatory. And then later on, if you want to share something that your partner said or your partner said, please check with them first before saying it to the group. And that way it'll feel safer for everybody. Okay? So you were going to say something, Maria?
Yeah, I just asked if you wanted to be in a group, but you've already answered that. And
Oh,
Kim's just raised his hand.
okay, Kim.
Well, I really like the third thing that maybe that Jack Cornfield said about letting go.
Yeah.
Let go. Maybe that could be another one of the three, three things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That seems so important, at least to me.
Yeah, they're all important and they all relate to each other. So I think the way to look at it is what does living well mean to you, or loving well mean to you? And then how you feel about that. And then what does living fully mean to you? And how do you feel like in that path? And then also the letting go aspect. What does that mean for you? And then what is your experience of it? Well, so I hope that might have been useful to you all. Does anybody have anything they would like to share or bring up about that? Did you learn anything new or anything? Yeah.
Kim?
Oh, sorry.
I learned something from someone in our group, and that was that letting go is not exactly something you can do. That when you try to, whenever I'm told relax my arm, it gets stiff, that kind of thing. So you have to find the thing to do to create that result. Or it's the same I've thought of, like someone who tries to be a famous artist. That would be like surefire way not to be. So anyway, it's quite a challenge to find what the path is to get the desired result. I'm going to be a good meditator today. Boy, that would not work.
Yeah, I think it's something about forgetting it, forget the self, that kind of, let it be. I think Joan was next. She didn't put a yellow hand up, but I saw her hand.
Yes, I put that hand up. I was wanting to share something that Ellen said in our group, and it is kind of personal, Ellen, and I don't know if you have some reservations about that.
You're muted, Ellen. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Well, it wasn't the main thing you said, but so I've got this thing that I'm trying to let go of, and that's hard for me to let go of. And Ellen was just talking about her metamorphosis through life, and she talks about in the past, and I wrote it down. She said, I was clueless, and I'm sorry people got hurt by that. And that was just what I need from this person to let go. And that person isn't there yet. But it was just so nice that if I think of that, then that will be very, very helpful to me. So thank you very much, Ellen.
It's a very compassionate response, right? Very compassionate. Compassionate to oneself.
We have Anne next.
Anne?
Yeah, thank you. Kate said something in our group that I really thought was wise about what is living a full life. I mean, how do you how do you determine that? And she was talking about living a life that's in line with your aspirations, your intentions. Because it, like Kim was saying, it's so hard to know, okay, what do you do? You'd like to have some instruction about how to love well, how to live a good life. What do those things mean? And it seemed very wise to think about what are your aspirations and am I living in line with those or am I trying to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Anne.
Got Nelda.
Kim got me to thinking about how hard it is to just let go. And it reminded me of some of the things I learned in some of the communications courses I took. So this has been helpful to me in moving closer to getting done what I'd like to get done in my life and in my actions rather than, making it harder. And it's sort of the old, don't think of pink elephants. As soon as you say that, that's all you can think of. So the approach that I was taught that has been helpful to me is rather than phrasing it in what you don't want to do, or like just let go, or like don't cling, is to phrase it in terms of what you do want to do. And I've shared this with everyone because I am so working with this little quote from October 2nd, 2021 calendar. It starts out with just let go. And as Kim said, when you focus on that, your muscles tighten up, right? But then it goes on to do it in a way that's beautiful and describes one way of doing that, which is let go of how you thought your life should be and embrace the life that is trying to work its way into your consciousness. And when I focus on that, on that possible means that will create a letting go, which is focus on the life around me, you here on Zoom and out here looking at life all around me and how it's trying to show me it's unfolding before me, then I'm able to let go. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Nelda. I really like that.
And by the way, some in our group thought you wrote your Dharma talk specifically for us. So thank you for writing that just for me.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Rosemary.
The people in my group, I wanted to talk mostly about loving well, and to say thank you to Appamada for helping me in this area so much. I think some of you with whom I sit frequently are probably aware, but yeah, because probably being an AV monitor is the thing that really helps me so much because I have a responsibility and I do some things well and I do some things not so well and I get corrected. And through all of that, I realize some of my obstacles. And it's really opened me up to that and how how I want so much to be connected and how some of these obstacles get in the way. So it's a big thank you to all of you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is one great big opportunity. I think for everybody. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. Okay, is that everybody? Okay, well, thank you so much. And now we'll do the rest of the program.